Hey guys, I'm Jackie, and today I want to talk about intermittent fasting. This is something I get asked about all the time. People want to know if I think it's an effective weight loss strategy. And so last week I touched on it a little bit when I talked about the importance of regulating your blood sugar and your insulin production if you're going for weight loss. And so if that is a goal of yours, intermittent fasting can actually be an effective tool to help you with that. And so I'm going to talk today about the studies that have been done on intermittent fasting, the impact that it can have on your body, people who should and who should not do intermittent fasting, and also how might you get started if it's something that you want to try. So let's get into it. So what exactly is intermittent fasting and why are so many people doing it right now? So intermittent fasting is basically the intentional regulation of the period of time that you are eating your calories and then the window of time that you are not consuming calories. And people are starting to extend the window of when they're not consuming calories to be longer than we used to think was healthy back in the day. Like, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, everyone said you have to eat your breakfast. It's the most important meal of the day. It jumpstarts your metabolism in the morning and it helps you think clearly. And so there's this big push, eat your breakfast. Well, now more and more studies are coming out about intermittent fasting, and they're actually saying that especially like if you're not super active in the mornings, it's actually okay and perhaps even better for you to not consume breakfast, which I know this gets really frustrating, I think, in the health and wellness industry, that something that has been taken as a fact gets proved wrong, or that might not actually be true, and then you have to look at it from a different angle. So I'm hoping I can help you understand it a little bit better today. So I made a video last week, and if you haven't seen it yet, check it out. It's called Why Am I Not Losing Body Fat? And it doesn't always have to do with the calories that you're consuming. It's oftentimes related to your blood sugar regulation and your insulin production throughout the day. And I'm not going to get all into that because I want to focus specifically on intermittent fasting, but it does tie together. So when you consume a meal, your blood sugar spikes and then your insulin spikes as well. The insulin is the hormone that your pancreas produces, which helps convert that blood sugar into glucose so that it can enter cells and it can be used as energy. The problem is that if we don't use it as energy, then it gets stored in a long-term storage system called glycogen, which is stored in your liver and your muscles. And then if you have excess glucose on top of that, it actually gets stored as body fat. And that is what most people's goal is they want to lose that body fat. But your body has a process, and if you constantly are eating and you're constantly spiking your blood sugar and you have glucose circulating in your bloodstream, your body is not ever going to be able to burn fat as fuel because it has to get through that glucose and the glycogen first. On average, it takes a person who's not very physically active about 10 hours of fasting or not eating anything before they even start to pull from their body fat stores and use that as energy. And that's where intermittent fasting comes in. So personally, I do not do intermittent fasting. I'm pretty active throughout the whole day. I start training at like 5:30 in the morning and I am up on my feet. I'm engaging with people. I don't ever sit down. So I do eat breakfast. If I don't, I find that I'm not as on point for my clients in the morning. I don't think as clearly, but I also kind of match my food levels to my activity levels. So if I had a desk job and if I were trying to lose some extra belly fat, I don't know that I would eat breakfast. I probably would try more of an intermittent fasting schedule because it will give your body a break from having to pump out so much insulin. And once you hit that 10-hour window, then from that point forward till you eat your next meal, your body is starting to pull from your fat stores and use that as fuel. So that is why people intermittent fast. Now, what do the studies say about it? So what does the research say? Well, like most things in the health and wellness world, the research is a little bit back and forth on intermittent fasting. Let's talk about the reported benefits from the research that they have done. Number one, There's a growing body of research that shows intermittent fasting can actually help your body's circadian rhythm, which is that sleep-wake cycle. And as you also know, or should know, sleep is good for you. So when you sleep better at night, it helps with all sorts of things like mental health. It can reduce your waistline. It can reduce your risk of heart disease. So all of those positive benefits, intermittent fasting can help you get better sleep at night. Another thing is like it's been shown to help reduce your LDL cholesterol, that bad cholesterol, help raise your HDL, reduce triglycerides, which also help reduce your risk of heart disease and metabolic syndrome. Another thing, which I kind of hinted at earlier, is it can really help to regulate your blood sugar. And if you think you're kind of headed down that path of insulin resistance, it can help to reverse that. Now, if you are already type 1 diabetic, which is, different story, that you are in a category of people that should not do intermittent fasting because you need to keep your blood sugar pretty steady. And people who are already type 2 diabetic, talk to your doctor about it. Don't just try to do it on your own because you also are going to need to keep your blood sugar levels pretty steady. Another thing is the results on body composition have been pretty positive. So on average, over an 8-week period of time, several studies have confirmed that like kind of the average weight loss would be about 3 to 7% of your starting body weight when you do an intermittent fasting schedule consistently. The other thing, and I found this really fascinating, is it's been really good for people's mind. It helps them to think more clearly, not at the beginning. Like it takes about 2 to 4 weeks to kind of really get in a groove. At first, people have reported being kind of like cranky because they're used to eating earlier on in the day. But once you get through that initial like 2 to 4 week phase, it's been shown to help you think a lot more clearly during the day, as well as preventing neurological disorders like down the road, especially like neurodegenerative, like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, like those types of things. There's some positive research to suggest it might help prevent that. Also, it's been shown to reduce inflammation in the body and then potentially reduce cancers, growth and development. So I found all of those things very fascinating, and I'm going to link a couple of articles in the comments that you can read about this as well and kind of see where I got some of this information. This mostly is from the Medical News Daily. I also got some from like Johns Hopkins website, so I'll link those on there. I also want to talk about this because I think it's important to consider all the information before jumping into something. There was a 1-year long-term study done that came out of, I say long-term, longer term than some of these other ones, okay? It came out of China, and they took 139 people, men and women, who were already obese to start. And then half of those people were on a calorie-restricted diet. For women, it was like 1,200 to 1,500 calories a day. I think men, it was like 1,500 to 1,800. They could eat that whenever they wanted. They were calorie-restricted, but they were not time-restricted. The other group of people had the same calorie restrictions, and they had to intermittent fast. So they also had to eat those reduced calories in like a certain time window. And the results were basically like they lost the exact same amount of weight. It wasn't significantly different one way or the other. On average, they lost, 14 to 18 pounds over the course of that year. So I wanted to point that out because that's why I say the research is a little bit back and forth on it. And I think like anytime you're looking at changing your diet up a little bit, you need to choose what's right for you. And so some of the things to consider about intermittent fasting, if you're going to try it, are you should not do it if you are pregnant or breastfeeding. You should not do it or have your kids do it if they're under the age of 18. I already talked about diabetics, need to talk to your doctor. You also should not do it if you have a history of an eating disorder, because it can just kind of play into that like control over food. And so you probably don't want to go down that path of trying the intermittent fasting. And so with that being said, there's like a couple of different methods to try with intermittent fasting. If it's something that you think you want to try out, like maybe you're not a big breakfast eater in general, maybe you're not really that active in the morning, it might be a great thing to try. If anything, if you are eating in like a reduced window of time, it might help prevent some of the like late night snacking. It might help to prevent some overeating and having too many calories in one day. And so if you want to try it, you want to start by doing like a calorie restricted window that's going to be sustainable. So I would suggest starting with like 14 hours of not eating and then 10 hours of consuming your calories. Do that for a few weeks. Your body gets used to it. If that feels okay, you can eventually work your way up to like 16 hours of not eating and then an 8-hour window of eating your food. And, you know, at least from what I'm reading, doctors and researchers are showing that if you don't fall into any of those categories of people who should not intermittent fast, you could do this like realistically forever if you like the way that you feel while you're doing it. It's not necessarily just a diet. It's kind of like a lifestyle. Like, this is just how I'm choosing to eat. The other way people intermittent fast is it's called the 5-2 method. 5 days a week, they eat just normal calorie range. 2 days a week, they have one meal of like 500 to 700 calories, and that's it. And so that's not quite as common, but that's something that you could think about trying as well. And then lastly, the third way is people will just do an alternating day. Like every other day, they intermittent fast, which I personally feel like would be just kind of hard to manage that. It'd be hard to go back and forth that way. But if you're kind of dubious about doing it like every single day, that might be another good place to start. So let me know if you've tried it. Let me know what your results were. I have had a few clients do this and they love it because I said, I think in my other video, I will oftentimes have people start off by like logging their food into an app just to raise some general awareness. But a lot of people don't like doing that because it takes time and it's kind of annoying to have to do that. So some of my clients have chosen just to be like, you know what, I'm just going to try intermittent fasting. And by doing that, that will reduce the total amount of calories I eat anyways. And then they really like it because they don't have to think that much about it. Okay, one last point. In that window of time that you're eating your food, don't go crazy. Like, there's not like a set limit of calories you're supposed to eat in that window. I would say if you are really going for weight loss, you probably want to reduce your calories a little bit because you're going to actually see the results happen a little bit faster. So like that study done in China, 1,200 to 1,500 calories for women is usually a pretty good place to start. And then for men, that like 1,500 to 1,800, you'll see pretty significant results that way. Don't, go running through the drive-thru at Freddy's and ordering like a milkshake and french fries and a double pound bacon cheeseburger. You're probably not going to get the results that you want if you're doing this to be healthier and to lose weight. So I hope that helped. I hope that cleared anything up. If you have any questions, comment below, and have a great day, everybody.